Hello friends. In our broad theme on the Indian Constitution, today we will be discussing the Prime Minister of India. In England, the Prime Minister is regarded as the keystone of the cabinet arc. Just like in England, in India too, Article 74, Section 1 of our Constitution clearly states that there shall be a Prime Minister at the head of the Council of Ministers. Almost all the powers that are being enjoyed by the British Prime Minister by means of their conventions are more or less applicable for the Indian Prime Minister as well. However, the written provisions of our Constitution in this regard are very sketchy in nature. They do not cover the wide areas of the authority that the Prime Minister has to exercise in India. Moreover, just like in England, in India too, the Prime Minister is expected to play the role of an efficient executive in view of the paramount fact that the President constitutes the dignified part of the Union executive. At this point of our discussion, it is worth to note that there are several factors that circumscribe to the authority of the Prime Minister. The powers and functions of the Prime Minister are to be examined in the light of these limitations as well that hedged around his office. Despite these limitations, even then over the years, the way the Prime Ministers have acted clearly leaves no doubt that the office of the Prime Minister is a significant one and it commands great authority and respect in relation to his cabinet, Council of Ministers, Parliament, and even the President of India. Let us see how a Prime Minister is appointed. The Prime Minister is selected by the party having a majority in the Parliament and then appointed by the President of India. Normally, the selection of the party comes first and the appointment by the President thereafter. What is important in this regard is not the action on part of the President in issuing an invitation to form the government, but what is more important or what really matters is that the party having majority in the Parliament has to deal with the crucial issue in selecting its nominee. Now, in such a situation, the President is required to act very cautiously. He may either invite the leader of the political party having a majority in the Parliament to form its government if he is absolutely sure that there is no other contestant within that party, or he may wait till the decision of the party in majority is intimated to him if he feels that a battle is likely to ensure insofar as a selection of the Prime Minister is concerned. Such an incident had happened when Dr. S. Radhakrishnan, who was the President of India, appointed Gujarilal Nanda as the officiating Prime Minister immediately after the death of Pandit Nehru. A new trend has been set thereafter that in case of a sudden vacancy of the post of the Prime Minister, the senior most member of the cabinet is usually appointed as the Prime Minister so long the decision or the final decision of the party is yet to be made. Such an incident had happened several times. An exception to the said pattern can also be noticed in the year 1984 when the then President of India, Gyani Zail Singh, appointed Rajiv Gandhi as the Prime Minister immediately after the assassination of Mrs. Indira Gandhi on the advice of the senior most cabinet ministers. Rajiv Gandhi, however, later on was accepted by the party members for his Prime Minister candidature. Now, what is interesting to note here is that the language of Article 75, Section 1 of our Constitution is very inadequate. In fact, it simply says that the Prime Minister shall be appointed by the President. It says absolutely nothing so far as the discretionary authority of the head of the state is concerned, nor does it say anything so far as a prime minister, if he happens to be not a member of the parliament. So it can be inferred from this particular provision of our constitution that the president at a time of emergency or in extraordinary situation, he may exercise his individual judgment in appointing the prime minister. Here it must be noted that the extraordinary situation implies that no political party is in a position to secure or exert their absolute majority in the parliament. Now, it also can be inferred. An overall assessment of this particular provision of our constitution clearly indicates that the president can appoint any person as the prime minister provided he fulfills two conditions. First of all, he has to have the support of majority behind him, and in case he is not a member of the parliament, then he is required to secure a seat within next 6 months from the time of his appointment. And this has what happened in the case of Narasimha Rao when he was appointed as the Prime Minister of India. Now let us see the term of office of the Prime Minister. Generally, the Prime Minister stays in his or her office for a period of 5 years. That is from one general election till the next parliamentary election. Now, if the period of Lok Sabha is enhanced at an extraordinary situation, then it also indicates that the tenure of the Prime Minister will also be enhanced. But on the other hand, if the Lok Sabha is dissolved before the normal term of 5 years, then it also indicates that the term of the Prime Minister will immediately come to an end. So in other words, we can say that the term of the Prime Minister actually depends on the tenure of the Lok Sabha or the normal term of the Lok Sabha. Let us now assume the powers and functions of the Prime Minister. The powers and functions of the Prime Minister can be derived from two major sources. They are firstly the constitutional provisions which are assigned to the Council of Ministers along with the Prime Minister, and secondly from the norms and the conventions of a parliamentary democracy. Now, in order to understand the powers and functions of the Prime Minister, it is essential for us to examine the relation which the Prime Minister shares with that of the President of India, the Council of Ministers, the party that he belonged to, the Lok Sabha, and lastly and but not the least, the popular masses of our country. For our convenience, let us examine this relation in the following manner. The first of all, the relation that we need to take up in this respect is the relation between the Prime Minister and the President of India. By virtue of being the leader of the Council of Ministers, the Prime Minister is actually the chief advisor of the President of India. Though the administration of the entire country is carried out in the name of the President, but it is done so on the advice of the Prime Minister. The Prime Minister not only advises the President so far as the Council of Ministers are concerned, but he also gives his advices with regard to important governmental appointments, like the appointments of the governors of different states, the appointment with regard to the Attorney General of India, Comptroller and Auditor General, Chief Election Commissioner, and so on. Even the decision to proclaim an emergency, which is usually being done by the President of India, but he does so only on the advice of the Prime Minister of India. The Prime Minister is basically the sole channel of communication between the President on one hand and the Council of Ministers on the other. The President may seek for the information or may ask for the day-to-day activities that are likely to take place within the administration of the country, and it is the responsibility of the Prime Minister to furnish him with all the necessary details of the administration to the President. In case of disagreement between the two, the President may even ask the Prime Minister to reconsider a particular proposals, provided that he has not done so earlier. Now let us examine the relation between the Prime Minister and the Council of Ministers. The Prime Minister is the leader of the Council of Ministers. Article 74, Section 1 of our Constitution clearly states that he is to head the Council of Ministers. Hierarchically, he is being placed at the topmost position. Now, so far as the Council of Ministers are concerned, they are appointed by the President but on the advice of the Prime Minister. In fact, Article 75, Section 1 of our Constitution simply says that the Council of Ministers are to be appointed by the President on the advice of the Prime Minister. This indicates that so far as the selection of the ministers are concerned and the distribution of portfolios amongst them is concerned, it is the exclusive concern of the Prime Minister of India. Not only that, we find that sometimes the Prime Minister intends to build up his cabinet as the cabinet of all talents. This was being done by Pandit Nehru at the very initial stages immediately after the independence, when we find that he included several non-congressmen in his cabinet. Now, if the Prime Minister enjoys the prerogative of forming the Council of Ministers, then he has equal rights in reshuffling or redistributing the portfolios amongst them. In fact, the Prime Minister at several occasions make changes within the Council of Ministers. Not only that, if a particular minister forfeits confidence of the Prime Minister, then the Prime Minister may demand for his resignation. But if he declines to give his or her resignation, then he may even go to the extent to in advising the President to dismiss him from the Council of Ministers. The Prime Minister is also eager to keep his or to retain his control over the department. In order to do so, he may bifurcate, even trifurcate a department and place it under the charge of different ministers. Let us see the relation which the Prime Minister share with that of the party that he belonged to. The Prime Minister is the leader of the political party. In fact, the leader of the political party having a majority in the Lok Sabha is usually appointed as the Prime Minister of India. So the relationship between the party and the Prime Minister are some sort of mutually interdependent on each other. The Prime Minister receives the electoral support or the political support from the party or the organization that he belongs to, and as against it, the party also demands that the aspirations or the promises which the party had made before the people on the eve of the election to be fulfilled. So when the party is providing him with the electoral support, as against it, it also demands that the Prime Minister would be in a position to give able and quality leadership. The Prime Minister plays a crucial role in retaining the fraternity and equality amongst the members within the party. In fact, being the leader of the party, it is his responsibility to retain his dignity as well as the image of the party both within the house and outside it. The personality of the Prime Minister, on the other hand, is also being projected by the party through print and electronic media. And such propagandas helped to create some sort of influence amongst the people in favor of the party. So the personality, dignity and popularity of the Prime Minister to a great extent are being taken up by the media to promote a particular political organization. The relationship between the Prime Minister and the party would remain incomplete if we do not take into account the relation which the Prime Minister shares with that of the President of the party. Both the President of the party and the Prime Minister seems to be some sort of complementing each other in theory, but in real practice it is not so. In fact, sometimes it has been found that the party president emerged as the kingmaker. Now, there are times when, or occasions when we find that the Prime Minister is the same person emerging or occupying a central position both within the government as well as within the party. A glaring example in this regard may be cited when Mrs. Gandhi took, at the time of Mrs. Gandhi, in her second phase of Prime Ministership. Now let us examine the relation between the Prime Minister and the Lok Sabha. By virtue of being the leader of the party having a majority in the Lok Sabha, the Prime Minister is also emerged as the leader of the House. As the leader of both the party commanding the majority and also as a leader of the House, he appears to be the central figure in the parliamentary affairs. Now, the Prime Minister plays a significant role so far as the Lok Sabha is concerned. There are an n number of functions that he has to perform. First of all, he has to make proposals for the dates of summoning and proroguing the session of the House. He also draws up the programs of the official parliamentary affairs, for instance, with regard to the bills, motions, discussions, and so on. Though it is the President who dissolves the House, but he does so on the advice of the Prime Minister. Now, the President may abide by the decision of the Prime Minister provided that he fulfills two conditions. First of all, the Prime Minister should not be a defeated minister within the Council of Ministers. Secondly, there is no possibility of a formation of an alternative ministry in this regard. As a leader of the House, the Prime Minister not only represents his own party, but he is also required to act more responsibly towards the opposition. In fact, being the leader of the House, he is required or he is expected to adhere or expected to listen to the demands of the opposition bench and tries to concede their demands as far as possible. Finally, we take up the relation which the Prime Minister shares with that of the people. The Prime Minister is not only the leader of the party, he is not only the leader of the Lok Sabha, but at the same time he is also the leader of the masses. It is his responsibility to read the public mind and change it or to command it accordingly in its favor. And the people too, on their part, depends to a great extent on the Prime Minister. The Prime Minister shares an intimate relation with the people since it is on their electoral support that he came up to that position, but his image to a great extent helped not only his organization but even his future existence within the political system. Through the print and the electronic media, the image of the Prime Minister is actually presented before the people, which helped to create an image of the Prime Minister amongst the masses. Now, the way the Prime Minister deliver his public speeches, his public appearances, attires, even his dress code. One may cite that in the recent years, the dress code of the Prime Minister may, even a particular dress of a Prime Minister is popularized by the name of the Prime Minister. Again, we find that these things are important in the sense that it helps to build up an image of the Prime Minister, and it is the responsibility of the Prime Minister to make the people aware of the governmental policies and programs and popularize them through the media. Even at the time of socio-economic political crisis, the Prime Minister delivers public speeches. This is done so that the people are not panic stricken and they feel comfortable that the governmental intervention is being made to resolve such a crisis. So far as the powers and functions of the Prime Minister is concerned, we can say that the Prime Minister has tremendous amount of authority in the Indian political system. Let us now examine the position of the Prime Minister. The Prime Minister occupies a significant position in the political system of India. It has been argued that the position of the Prime Minister has been enhanced with the centralization of bureaucracy since it is being placed under his command. Not only that, many went to the extent in calling the Indian political system as the prime ministerial government. However, despite these enormous powers which the prime minister enjoy, yet we find that the Indian prime minister cannot convert himself into a dictator due to several constitutional and political obligations. There are several factors which curb the powers of the prime minister. First of all, the public opinion happens to be one of the important factors which to a great extent control the authority of the Prime Minister. The Prime Minister to a great extent has to depend on the feedback of the people so far as his governmental policies and programs are concerned. Secondly, the several interest groups and pressure groups, in order to fulfill their demands, may exert pressures upon the Prime Minister, which in a way threatens his position. Thirdly, we find that the opposition bench and the media severely criticizes the programs and policies of the government, and in doing so, they actually proposes a check and balances so far as the powers of the Prime Minister is concerned. Finally, since the 90s, with an era of coalition politics, we find that the regional political powers has found to provide a constant check upon the powers of the Prime Minister. Now, despite these limitations, to conclude, we can say that the Prime Minister or the powers of the Prime Minister is not always constrained with the political situation. Along with the political situation, much depends on the personal equation of the holder of the office. In fact, if the Prime Minister is able to establish his legitimacy over the institutional and constitutional and institutional power structure, then he is in a position to exercise more powers than one whose support structure is confined or restricted within the legal and constitutional structure of the political system. Thank you.